So you've signed up for our practice and you are becoming a new patient and you are wondering what your first visit is like. First of all, welcome to our practice.
Welcome.
That first visit can be really intimidating because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who we are, blah, blah, blah. And so we want to give you some idea of what happens in that first new patient visit, maybe so you can mentally prepare and maybe make you more comfortable, whatever it may be. We want you to be comfortable because that first visit is mostly all about you. I mean, all your visits should be about you. But this first visit is not only just about you, but it's really about your story. So one of the things we love to do in functional medicine is we love to piece together a little timeline. And you say when your symptoms start and then what happened next and what you tried and what didn't work and what did work and where you were at, what mom or dad did or didn't do or whatnot, brother, sister relationships. And so we love to put that little timeline together. And then by the time it's done, it's interesting to see how, well, we can point out that this situation, your insomnia started and, well, you were living in a moldy house. And so that's where it started. And then you were eating too many carbs and sugar. And that's where your gut problems started, whatever it may be. So that first visit, one of the first things we do is we say, this time is all about you. You have 90 minutes in your first visit, 90 minutes, hour and a half in your first visit. And that time is to tell your story. And oftentimes what we do is we let the patient talk and we say, look, we might interrupt you every now and then. We might say, hey, wait, pause a second. Can you tell me what year that was or what time, what time of the year or whatever it was? That in order for us to get that sequential events, because we don't need to know all the details of everything, perfect timing. We just want to know the major events and kind of what sequences led to the next. And that helps us narrow down what might be kind of your root cause, or what pattern we might have seen in some other patient that we can treat, and maybe we can save you some money by not doing the test. Like there's no reason to do the mold test. We already know you're moldy, so let's just treat it as such.
Yeah, and we want you to not have to do all the legwork. So we will be typing, obviously. We'll be keeping track of this timeline, and we'll ask the questions. Your main job is to sit back, relax, at least enjoy your time with us if you can, and just talk. And we'll direct it. We'll try to figure out patterns, and we'll tell you about it. I like to tell patients, hey, the first few visits alone are data gathering because you are so unique. Everything to your life is unique. And there's so much we can point out from a story that we don't need to spend money on testing. So it may seem like we're asking a ton of questions because we are, and we want you to be vulnerable, and we hope it's a safe space for you to be as well. But we'll start to kind of navigate that for you.
One of our favorite things is when we have a patient that says, well, that's the end of the story. And I'm like, no. There's always more in the story. Like, there's no way I'll use 90 minutes. We'll end this short. Like, no.
And we always go over it. Always. Even when you first start, we go over. And that's okay.
There's more to the story, and the story is important.
Yeah.
In addition to that new patient visit, there's other just kind of factual questions we have to ask. And so if you come pre-prepared, that's always nice. If you have like your family history typed up, if you have your medications, your supplements, your allergies, your surgeries, any kind of basic medical information, those are always nice. We have online patient forms. Those are really nice ahead of the time if you fill those out for us, because we don't have to ask you all those static questions and bore you if you don't want to bore us with it. And we can just kind of include those in the note as far as they might be important, but they may not be important now, might be important later. We want to have them in the chart. The other thing that's a good exercise with those questions is a lot of times I sense frustration with my patients when I ask them a question that I already know they answered online, and they're like, I already typed this up. Like, why did you make me type it up if I'm asking you again? Yeah. And part of the reason is because I need to get a sense of urgency and idea of how much this problem bothers you, right? So 9 out of 10 patients that come to our practice have fatigue. When you say you have fatigue, do you say, oh my gosh, my fatigue is so debilitating? You're like, yeah. Well, after an hour workout, I have a little bit of fatigue. Like, that's too serious, right?
We're gonna navigate this a little differently.
So a lot of it is the mental exercise of going through those forms, filling them out, as painstaking as they are, but they also can serve as memory triggers of like, I guess I did have constipation 10 years ago before this, that, and the other. And the other thing that happens with those forms is it can give you a symptom number to your where you're at in life. So the MSQ, called the multi-system questionnaire, I think is what it stands for. And it goes through all the systems and do you have headaches, do you have chest pains, whatnot, and it gives you a number to it. And so if a month or two down the road, you're like, gosh, I'm still sick, we can actually ask you those same questions again. And you might say, well, my score was 120, now I'm 100. I'm at least 20 points less sick than I was a couple months ago. And because one of the metaphors we use in functional medicine is, if you're sitting on 2 tacks and I take one away, do you feel 50% better? No, you're still sitting on a tack. It still hurts. Why are you sitting on the tack is the functional medicine question of like, that's the root cause. Stop sitting on the tack. So as far as the new patient visit, we almost always try to make it a joint visit, right? Almost always the prescriber and the nutritionist. That way you don't have to necessarily tell the story twice, and whatever gets started from the beginning, the ground up, is what goes forward. Now, sometimes we get busy, the prescriber can't be in the first meeting and you're with the nutritionist, but in general, we almost always try to plan it where it's the nutritionist and the prescriber in the same visit. The therapist is never part of the joint visits.
No.
That's just a separate discussion with you and the therapist. Although we do a lot of therapy
We
on
do.
our own.
We do. And I think about the nutrition too is that with the first visit, since you do get the story, you'll primarily get another new visit with the nutritionist. After that, the nutritionist needs to know every part of your story as well because they carry out major protocols, most of them. All of them actually. And so the nutritionist needs to know all those details. But instead of spending the time just focus on nutrition, which sometimes can take up to an hour separately, we have another appointment for that. So don't worry about all of your questions that you do have. We'll still dive into that at some point.
So the new patient visit, we get all kinds of data. The majority of the visit is really, as Aubrey said, data gathering. We really try to focus because that one opportunity to get the whole story is in that first visit. And we like to say labs can put on our blinders. If we see certain labs, we start chasing that rabbit. And so what we want to do in that first visit is we do want you to bring labs so that we can scan them into your chart if you already have something. But honestly, in that first visit, I don't even like to see labs. I want them face down. I don't want to get blinded by seeing a certain number and thinking something. I want to hear the story from the beginning, and Aubrey too, not just me. We want to hear the story from the beginning so that we know what is the most important thing, not just what the lab showed. Because sometimes labs can show what you're positive in, but you don't know the other tests because you never did those. And so if we focus on the one positive, we don't know what else might have been positive if we didn't listen to the whole story. So basically about 60 to 80 minutes of the new patient visit is mostly just getting the story, getting the data. And then what we usually at least like to do with the last part of the visit is try to assimilate all the information, although that's kind of happening while you're telling the story. But the last 10, 15, 20 minutes of it is assimilating the data, giving you kind of some, not necessarily diagnoses, but at least our plan. Directive, that's a good idea. And so what we're going to do, what are the next steps? And it's important for every new patient to realize that although we might be telling you the next step, we have about 20 to 30 more steps that you need to go through to be healthy. And so we're just going to give you the piece that you need to focus on, but we've got a whole timeline in our head of the things that we need to accomplish for each and every patient. So you'll leave that visit with what we call our prescription sheet. It's a sheet that we fill out on the iPad and kind of email it to you, and the front desk can print it out if needed. But it's a write-up of all the supplements, all the prescriptions that you're taking. Basically everything that you put in your mouth or inject or whatever should be on that prescription sheet. No matter if you got medicines from another doctor or supplements from another doctor, we want this prescription sheet to be everything that you need to do when you go home. So you're not like, oh, well, Dr. Oob said this and so said this. Everything's on that one sheet. You will walk out with that so that your plan is very simple. In addition, you walk out with a food plan, and Aubrey has done a great job of designing these food plans, but they're generally not printed because we would run out of ink because they're really long documents.
And I think, and all this to say is that we'll give you a base to start with. We'll give you a foundation, but as your tests come in, as your labs come in, as we know more about your nutrition and your plan, then we'll start to really customize it. We can give you a base and then personalize it as well. And same kind of with our plan. We'll give you kind of this, hey, this is what we think is happening. This is what we've seen. We do need to check your markers for this. We do need to test this. We'll give you a short-term plan and a long-term plan, but to the best of our knowledge at that time. So that's why the first honestly, month, your plan may be malleable and it may be changing for that reason because you're not just one type of human being that we see. We want to make sure that's personalized.
And our labs, the blood work alone takes 2 weeks to get back. The stool study and almost all of the advanced functional medicine testing takes 4 weeks to get back. So in that data gathering, we're starting some basic supplementation and seeing how you react to that. And that's data in itself. If you feel tremendously better, that's data. If you feel worse, that's data. We need to know those things even before we get some of the testing back.
And we work on lifestyle and other factors right now that affect that. And I mean this, we have not had a single patient, as knowledgeable as they are, some of them you could pass as doctors, I'm sure. Some of them are doctors.
They give me a run for my money.
I know, right? But even when you come here and go, I've done everything, I've never had a single person not have something to change. So that's what we can do, or at least improve, right? So in that meantime, we have a lot of work that can be done because we want to help you with all aspects of health and healing.
Absolutely. When will you be seen again? So after you've got your prescription sheet, you've got your food plan, you can expect more emails from your nutritionist from the food plan and stuff. But then next is when are you going to be seen again? So of course you might need to return for blood work. We like to warn you, if you would like to do blood work that morning, you're welcome to come to your appointment fasting, and we can draw your blood even before the appointment if you choose. There's certain days we can't do labs, or we can't do labs on Fridays and after certain hours or something. So if your appointment's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which we never do new patients, but anyway, in the afternoon, you may not want to do the fasting afternoon. You may want to do it only if it's in the morning. And a lot of doctors say you need to fast for like 16 hours. All I ask for is 4 hours of fasting. If your markers are still abnormal after 4 hours of fasting, that in itself is important to know. So 4 hours is plenty. So if your appointment's at 11 a.m. and you want to eat a hearty breakfast, then just stop eating by 7, 11, you're good. Or if you want to draw your blood after the appointment, it's a 90-minute appointment, so wherever that lies, right? And so when are you going to follow up with your practitioners again? The usual realm is after the new patient visit, you will see your prescriber, which is me and your nurse practitioner PA. You will see them again at 4 weeks. Now, people that are complicated or didn't get a lot of the story or need more work, we may see at 2 weeks, but in general, the provider will see at 4 weeks. That way, the labs have already come back and processed. You might have even already reviewed the labs with a nutritionist, and hopefully your stool study will be back by then. If not, that's okay, you can go over to the next one. But that also gives you time to focus on the nutritionist. That's the next big part. So your prescriber will see you at 4 weeks, but your nutritionist will be seeing you either the next week or the next week. So 1 to 2 weeks from that new visit, and they might be seeing you every week or every other week. It just depends on your needs. If you want a lot of hand-holding, a lot of accountability, if you've never eaten gluten-free before, we need a lot of coaching. That's where the nutritionist will decide how often they need to meet based on your time and demand and what you want to kind of self-learn. And then after that, that's when the visits start to get a little different. In general, the first few months, you'll see your prescriber every 4 weeks, just because there's a lot to do, a lot changing, and maybe even for longer, depends on how sick you've been. And once again, it's membership. So if you need to be seen every 4 weeks, that's okay. After about the 3rd or 4th month mark, I find that people start needing less and less hand holding. So then it's every 6 weeks or every 8 weeks. And also by that point, you get a sense of what you're already doing. You already know the basics of nutrition. You know what we're doing. Maybe you've done our gut plan once, and the next one you don't need as much hand holding because you've done it before. Even though it's a little different, you can kind of figure it out. And then sometimes we even do a lot more email medicine by that point. So even though you weren't seen at 4 weeks, we still exchanged emails, went back and forth, and kept your plan moving without you spending time in our office.
Yeah, we like that expectation, right? I think there's been patients who have seen different providers in the past, not from here, but other practices, obviously, who had need to be seen pretty quickly, multiple times from like the MD, PA, or NP, but it's not necessary. I think we have a very strategic plan of like diagnostic tools too, and data gathering to where we're like, we don't need to see you, or he doesn't need to see you before that 4 weeks because of the labs. The nutritionist can help you all that way. Not that we're trying to push you off, but we just want to set that expectation of you don't need to see the provider every week while you're beginning treatment.
And then every new patient gets access to our online courses. Our online courses can do a lot of the coaching and stuff for you. One of the downsides is usually if you're sick and come to see us, your brain may not be working that well. You can't remember everything we talked about. So go online to our grocery store tour, our nutrition course, our mold course, our gut course, whatever it may be, whatever area you're focusing on. Go online, watch the courses. That way, if we're talking too fast, you can pause us and be like, whoa, what did he say? Go back a bit. Or what did she say? Go back a bit. So utilize those online courses, because ultimately, if we can teach you how to treat yourself, then that makes it easier for you. You get healthier and healthier. And then what happens? Then you teach your family members, you teach your brother and sister, your neighbors, whoever it may be. And that's how we change it. One of my mottos is we change the world one person at a time. Because if we can change you, you have at least 10 people in your social network that you can influence, and then that will influence them and so forth. And we can change the world by changing one person at a time. Okay.
Love it.
So that's what our new patient visit is about. Usually they're pretty fun and enlightening, and you always leave learning something about your health that you maybe didn't see, piecing the pieces together. Putting
them together. Same thing.
So anyway, don't be afraid of your new patient visit. It should be very comfortable, and we're going to learn a lot about you.
Yay.
So we'll see you soon.